Let's take a closer look at the new ShopDisney Droid Factory figure set featuring 4 droids from Obi-Wan Kenobi. Varykino, living the Star Wars life. Hello there and welcome to the Varykino YouTube channel. So today I have a new arrival from ShopDisney, which is the Droid Factory 4 action figure set from Obi-Wan Kenobi. So this is part of the popular Droid Factory line, which was kicked off by the Build-A-Droid Astromechs that were available in the Disney parks, predominantly in the US, where you could build and customize your own Astromech action figure. This line is not actually made by Hasbro, so it's kind of interesting to compare these action figures to Hasbro action figures. But for now, let's take a look at the figures that are included in this set. This is, of course, from the Disney Plus series, Obi-Wan Kenobi. We have R3-T2, Ned-B, Viper Probe Droid, or Imperial Probe Droid, depending on how you like to call him, and one Jack, or one JAC. So this one is an Astromech seen on Tatooine in the first episode as a bit of an Easter egg callback to the special edition seen on Tatooine in A New Hope, where you can sort of see him in the background. We have, of course, Ned-B, the sort of helpful droid that assists Obi-Wan. We have the not assisting Viper Probe Droid that Obi-Wan has to deal with. And then we have the sort of bounty hunter droid here that pursues Obi-Wan and Leia later on in the series. So very excited that we were able to get our hands on this. These are really cool characters. Definitely keen to add more to our Obi-Wan Kenobi collection. So very keen to get them out and take a closer look. I have some Hasbro action figures to do a little bit of a in-person comparison once I've got these all out. But lastly, let's just take a little bit closer look at the packaging. So we've got the sort of classic Droid Factory branding there. I like the kind of the font that they use here. Nice and clearly named in case you sort of forgot which one is which, because I had to look this one up. I couldn't quite remember where he showed up in the series. So on the back, we have a nice little grid here of some promotional photos of each of the characters as seen in the series, which is really quite neat. I definitely want to keep this box because that's a really neat reference for those 4 figures. And then here we have a little bit of text in 3 different languages. All different types of droids populate the Star Wars galaxy. Each is different and has their own unique personality and colors. These 4 are featured in Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi. May the Force be with you and your droids, which I think is cute. Just a little bit of a blurb there. Just the sort of standard Star Wars sort of blueprint design on the rest of the box there. And obviously the nice clear big window. So if you want to keep this carded in its box, they display well like that. But I'm very, very keen to open this up. So let's get started. Okay, let's get in. Hopefully this all slides out easily. So we have them sitting in a nice plastic tray there. This is obviously not Hasbro. I know Hasbro's trying to really move forward in the sort of plastic-free packaging collection. Disney has a little bit more of a collectible approach to this. It's got a nice clear window so you can keep them carded if you want. So let's get in and have a look at the figures there. I think that's really, really nice. I was super excited to see these in person. Obviously buying online, you're never quite sure how good they're going to be. Oh look, we've got some neat art sitting there behind the figures. We've got Obi-Wan and Vader as seen in the new show. That's quite cool. You can just about use that as a backdrop for your figures. I'm just going to pop that there. That's really quite cool. Okay, so let's dive in and have a look at these figures. Getting them out of the plastics, always the stressful part. Oof, okay. So we have R3-T2. He's got some kind of muddy sort of, well, I guess it's supposed to be Tatooine dust there, isn't it? So yellow sort of speckling there at the bottom, sort of classic R2 sort of body here, and a red head with light. Cool. So he's articulated. I know the Build-A-Droid's arms can pop off. I'm not too sure. I don't really want to go pulling on that one too tightly. I might do that one later with a little bit more care. But he's got wheels, so you can sort of play with them if you want. Sort of good Because this one doesn't sort of fold up, I don't know if you can pull this one out. Let's see. Kind of looks like, yes, okay. So you can do him two-legged. That means you can probably pull his legs off, but I'm not going to try on those ones just yet. But yeah, that's good to know. I'll just slot that back in there. If I'm getting this right. Yeah, it's got a shaped peg, so I can get it in the right way. But yeah, that's quite a tight, tight fit. Okay, cool. So I'll keep him in his three-legged pose for now and pop him off to the side. Okay, so now on to Ned-B. Isn't he cool? I was really surprised that Hasbro has not made him as an action figure yet. So this was one of the draw cards for the set for me especially, because I thought he was a really cool character. So, oh, he's got quite the articulation. I can feel that already. That's quite swivelly. He goes all the way around quite easily there. So we can take a look at his face there. With the paint job. He's kind of designed to be sort of a little bit worn, so it's one of those ones where you're not too fussy with the paint job, because if he's a little bit scratched, it's kind of okay. So he's got, yeah, really swivelly joints. He's got a lot of articulation actually. He's got knees, he's got feet, ankles, let's see, elbows. Yeah, looks like he should bend at the elbows. Yep, stiff at the elbows. And of course the arms, and a little bit of movement there side to side with the head. He's got some good paint app there on the back, silver details at the joints, and his blue arm. Very cool. Glad to have him in action figure form. So yeah, some of the joints are looser than others. The feet and around the waist are really quite loose. But at least it's tight at those crucial points like the knees, so they don't sort of tip over too much. The legs have got some good movability there. Not quite as stiff, but I feel like he should be one that's not too hard to pose in a standing up position. There we go. He stands nicely. Okay, next up we have the Viper Probe Droid. Okay. He came out easy. That is good. Okay, so this one has a removable stand, which is nice. I personally like the clear stand. I know some people sort of looks a little bit more like a plastic display stand and you want some realism. I like it because they do sort of float and hover in the show. So I like that you can have him raised up to sort of the right height on display. And this guy has a super amount of articulation. He's got all of these arms, or legs, I guess you could say. Like this one, for example, we have articulation here at the top, at the second joint, and third joint, and I think this one at the end is just sculpted. Yeah, so this leg has got 3 joins. This one has 2, this one has 2, that one has 2, and that one has 2. So yeah, the really long one's got 3, all the others have 2, so you can sort of pose him there. The head, head portion will pivot around a little bit. There's a little sort of knob here, so just glides over that. That's good. And the 2 antennae here are sort of a softer plastic, so they won't be too brittle and break. You do need to be careful that you don't sort of bend these ones, because you will crack them or sort of permanently disfigure them a little bit. But the paint app on this is really quite nice. It's dark. It's got a little bit of a metallic sort of sheen to it. It's not fully metallic. This isn't a vac sort of metallized figure. But these are such cool droid designs, and they don't get made in action figure form very often. I was super excited to see it show up in Obi-Wan Kenobi, because I thought, ooh, that means we might get it in merch. So very cool. Another one that I think would have been a super popular choice for Hasbro to make. And maybe we will see some of these characters down the line. But for now, fans of Kenobi can get their fix with this set. I love how poseable all these arms are. You can get some really cool sort of attack modes going on there. So very cool. And he stands up obviously quite nicely on his clear stand. So last but not least, we have one jack, or one JAC. Oof, that wasn't too hard. Okay, so here's sort of a classic sort of protocol droid shape with this lovely sort of, I don't know, it's a dark metallic sort of finish. Again, not sort of metallized, but it's got a lovely sort of metallic sheen, particularly on the body. There's a subtly different, I don't know, maybe it's just the detail on the legs. The body it's definitely visible on, and I love the paint job on those eyes. That's really quite cool. I hope that's showing up. It's kind of the sort of the bug eye sort of print there with sort of a really neat green sheen behind it. So this one has got some pretty good articulation here as well. We've got shoulders, we've got, which angle is this? A little bit on the arms. I'm trying to figure out the right way. Oh, his arm's pointing the wrong way. There we go. Shoulders and wrists. Oh, sorry, elbows. I've got the classic hip joints. Looks like his blasters are fused to the legs. So it doesn't look like he can take them out. I'm not going to pull too hard on that. Then we've got knees. Knees are very stiff. Let's see. Can I? Yep, okay. Knees and a little bit of articulation side to side there on the ankles. Good stiff knee joints there, and of course a little bit in the head. And we've got a little bit of sort of wobble there at the, it's not going to go side to side because of the shape, but we've got a little bit of sort of forward and back movement there. And he's got a really cool bandolier sculpted on, all those cool wires there in that midsection. Very nice. And then again on the front there, he looks very cool. Sculpting on the arms, this one seems to be, I don't know which way the arms, it's got like, I think, I'd have to look closely. It's come in the box with the ball joint on the back, which means I can't sort of bend it that way. I kind of want to rotate it a little bit to get that forward movement, which is a little bit stiff there. So I feel like I want to pose him that way, even though his arms were the other way around in the packaging. But yeah, so there we go, the 4 of them. And his knee is just a little bit squiff on this one. I don't really know if I can, oh yes, okay, cool. There's a little bit of side to side rotation there in that joint, so I can get his legs a little bit straighter. You never know if it's like a little bit wonky or just, you know, the articulation's just a little bit out of whack there. Okay, I'm going to put the plastic off to the side and let's get stuck into some comparisons. Okay, now it's time to compare these Disney Droid Factory figures to some examples from the Hasbro 3.75-inch line. So first up we have the Obi-Wan Kenobi figure from the series. This is of course from the vintage collection that recently came out from the show, as we've got Obi-Wan here in his Disney Plus series attire, the sort of the wandering Jedi. So I wanted to kind of get him out to sort of see how the scale compares, because these are pretty much 3.75, but it's not kind of like marketed as being part of the line. Just trying to get Obi-Wan to stand up here. Okay, so we can see that he is pretty much, obviously his hood's a little bit taller there, but we can see him in scale with the figures, and they all pretty match pretty well. We've got sort of protocol droid designs being a little on the shorter side to figures. Ned-B was clearly taller, and then we've got the really cool Viper Probe Droid being a little bit taller than him there. You can sort of see him there. So next up we have a classic Hasbro Astromech and a sort of similar design, but we can see that the sculpting is a little bit different on these figures, but they're pretty much sort of same height. These ones tend to have a few more features because they are part of the sort of Build-A-Droid line. You can take their heads off, because in the parks they are sort of, you know, customizable, so that's kind of a fun feature there. We've got sort of the greeblies there and the pin, so they're a little bit different in the way that they're sculpted. Obviously Hasbro's are not designed to really be pulled apart, but we can see the details there. I think they fit really well together. I'll take some sort of comparison photos to show the detail sort of close up. But yeah, if you're wanting this character from Obi-Wan Kenobi, he will fit perfectly alongside your Hasbro ones. We can see them there. So the one that I was really excited to see a comparison against was the Viper Probe Droid, because the example from Hasbro has been one of my sort of favorites of a long time, and they don't really release this one often. This one is going back a ways. I can just see it's got, what is that, 1996, I think, is the copyright in there. Possibly, yeah, I think this is 1996. So, yeah, it's going back a ways now. They really should reissue this one. Clearly, this one is a lot bigger. That's the first thing you sort of really notice compared to this Viper. It's just the difference in scale. Now, one of the things that I particularly like about this new one is it doesn't have this kind of the firing plastic piece here that really does kind of throw it off. This was sort of a play feature that the modern sort of vintage collection doesn't really lean into. The vintage collection's designed for adult collectors, really, so you don't get quite the same sort of, especially at such a sort of a crucial point as part of the droid's face, as it were. And this one doesn't come with a stand. You kind of have to, he's got long feet so you can kind of stand him, but he's kind of a little bit prone to tipping over. And of course the color is quite different. I really like the sort of the darker metallic tone of this compared to sort of the grey, very toy plastic. Sorry, this one's a bit dusty. It's been on a shelf for a while. And of course, if I take this one off its display stand just for a minute so we can have a look at the underside a little bit, this is some fabulous sort of detail here. Particularly these sort of little spokes and things like that. Obviously we've got a little sort of hub in the middle to support the stand, but we've got all these little detailed greebly bits that just give it a sort of a more complete sense of detail compared to this one, which just sort of feels like it's got some greeblies, but it mostly just looks like the underside of a toy. We can see sort of screws there, sort of the bright orange component to sort of pop the head off. Yeah, I know if you've got sort of grown up with this one as your reference point, this one may feel a little bit underscaled. And to be honest, we don't really see these ones clearly close to humans that well. We see this one on Hoth, but apart from a few behind the scenes shots, which I'll pop up on the screen, you don't really see this one close to the characters on Hoth. There's the behind the scenes is the best reference in terms of scale that we have for the actual prop that was used in the movie. Now this one we do see sort of on set next to stormtroopers, so the scale is a little bit more clearly defined. But so if you're really fond of the scale of this one, you might be a little bit disappointed. But at the same time, these are years apart. You can sort of frame it as this is sort of generation 1. They decided to sort of up the ante and go with a sort of a generation 2. Like we see with the battle droids, we have the B1 sort of yellow ones we see on Naboo, and then later on we saw the super battle droids, the B2s that are bigger and a different color and stuff like that. So you can think of them as sort of like different generations. Honestly, I kind of wish I could army build this thing because it's just so cool. Even if it feels a little bit smaller, I feel like it's appropriately scaled for this line, I think. I don't think it reads quite as big on screen when we see it with Obi-Wan. The shots with Obi-Wan, it's kind of his perspective, the droid's perspective. We don't sort of see them that clearly in the same shot together, but I think it reads fairly well, particularly with an action figure collection. If I just move him out of the way, we can kind of see how it looks next to the other ones. It's tall enough to feel imposing without it sort of being like this one is kind of a bit big. Personally, I don't know. It's up to you preference, really. I personally, if I had to choose which one of these to put on display, I'm going to pick this one. I really like the color. I really like the detail. It feels like something I would expect from the vintage collection. Obviously, vintage collection didn't exist at the era that this toy was made, when the toys were more focused towards play and sort of children. This one, despite it coming from Disney, actually feels like it's more of a collectible piece than a toy. It doesn't have play features, it's got fantastic articulation for posability, and it's just got all the right sort of level of details. I mean, look at all those little dots, if I can get the camera to show it, all those little dots of detail on the surface. I think that's just really neat, and not what I was really expecting from a Shop Disney toy. I know the Droid Factory is a very popular line. We've only just recently got Shop Disney in New Zealand, so I haven't had the opportunity to add as many as I'd like to my collection. So I was very excited that this one did show up, and very excited that I could get my hands on it. So I hope you enjoyed this little comparison. Obviously Obi-Wan's just going to hang out here with his droids for a minute. And this one can just be pretending to be shot in the background. So I think this is a really good addition to your vintage collection. Unless you're a purist and you only want Hasbro items in your sort of display, I tend to go for scenes. So I like other ones that can flesh them out. And it's kind of funny that there's such this definition between Hasbro and Disney made products, even though they seem to fit exactly the same. I kind of wish that, you know, Disney would make more outside of just droids in this sort of format. I realize that the sort of Build-A-Droid feature is very fun at the parks, but it'll be fun to see some human characters or maybe some creatures, because Hasbro's not giving us creatures for what seems like way too long. Okay, moving on to a little bit of trivia about this set. This was a really popular set because, as I mentioned earlier, Hasbro hasn't made these characters in part of the Vintage Collection 3.75-inch line yet. So in the US, this set retailed for $44.99 US. That translates at the moment to nearly 79 New Zealand dollars, which is not bad. That's nearly $80. That's $20 a figure, which is actually cheaper than vintage collection figures are here locally. Vintage collection carded figures generally retail $30 to $35 depending on retailer. It's a little high, I know, but that's the price we pay for being a little bit further from the US. So Shop Disney New Zealand had this set for $27.90. So for us, that's cheaper than one carded vintage collection figure. For comparison, for those of you in the US, that's approximately US $15.90 for the full set of the 4 droids, which is kind of crazy, really. So we were very, very fortunate because that we were able to get this locally and at a crazy price. It has unfortunately sold out from the Shop Disney New Zealand website. Not surprising, because I think that price discrepancy attracted a lot of attention locally. People were very keen to grab this. And I do feel sorry for fans overseas that were not able to get their hands on this or had to pay the US price or perhaps imported it to their country to get a hold of it. But that was just really unusual and kind of one of those rare instances where some of us international fans got a slightly better deal than you guys in the US. But we're very glad to have been able to grab this set at an affordable price and from a local retailer. So there we have it. I am super stoked with this set. I love these figures. I love the Obi-Wan series. I love being able to add more to my collection on the shelf. We've got a few more from the vintage collection, like Darth Vader and Reaver, and I'm hoping that Hasbro makes some more. Maybe Shop Disney will release some more, who knows. But thank you so much for watching my unboxing and comparison. I hope this was informative, and stay tuned for more Star Wars unboxings. As always, thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, check out our other videos, and subscribe for alerts about new uploads. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.